Good afternoon.
There won't be any questions related to that data.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Questions would have to be
If I can, call the meeting, please, to start. Felix.
Good afternoon. A few things at the top of the meeting, please, if that's all right. First, we will do introductions later on with the chair, but our chair and deputy chair both cannot be with us today. They're both, I think, a bit poorly. So we've asked one of our private sector representatives, Tim Craven, to chair for today. I'm asking now if that's all right with everybody, or if there's anybody who really wants to sit here and chair it. And if so, please say so now, and we'll toss a coin or something. Thank you very much. Partly because our chair and deputy chair are both not here, but also for other reasons. A couple of our elected members also cannot join, which means the meeting is not quorate, unfortunately. That should not detract from the conversation that we're going to have. Hopefully that actually releases us to talk more freely if we want to. This is not the kind of meeting that we usually make investment decisions for all sorts of reasons, so it shouldn't affect that either. Practically, what it does affect is that for our quorate and formal meetings, we record everything. We would still like to do so, but if colleagues and members do not want us to do so, then let us know now and we can switch that off or not turn it on, as it were. Are we happy for the session to be recorded? Thank you. Finally, we normally would, after the meeting, we'll have detailed minutes which will be checked, approved, and then published. Because this is not quorate, we will not do that, or better still, we do not have to do that. Instead, we will take a note of this meeting, and we will share the notes, a few days afterwards, so at least we have some kind of record of the conversation that was had. It's not going to be formal minutes in the way that we normally would. But again, I just want to make sure members are happy with that. It would be anonymized as much as it's possible, so we can have a free conversation. Okay, thank you very much. I won't do any more housekeeping because I'm expecting that we all know where the gents and stuff are round the side that we came in. I know there are a couple of new members, but the chair will cover that as we go on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Felix. Thank you for the invite to do the chair role today. I will. So, what I'd first like to do is to thank Councillor James Lewis. He has driven this, chaired this committee over the last couple of years, and really just want to pass on our thanks to him for all the work that he has done. Okay, this is also first meeting for a number of new appointees. So not here, but Councillor Elizabeth Reynolds, who has been appointed to the committee from Kirklees Council and replaces Councillor Graham Turner. We have Natasha Barber Evans, Chief Exec of the Better Connect Limited organisation, representative of the BCSE community. Welcome, Natasha. We also have, on the committee, we have Councillor Joe Hepworth from Wakefield Council, replacing Councillor Michael Graham. Unfortunately, can't be here today. We also have Nikki Davis. CEO and Principal of the Leeds College of Building and Chair of the West Yorkshire Consortium of Colleges. So Nikki is replacing Nav Chauhan, Principal of Shipley College. So again, Nikki, welcome to the committee. Ben, would you be able to cover off apologies, please?
Sure thing. We've had apologies from Councillor Scott, Shirley Congdon, Councillor Dacre, Councillor Khan, Councillor Hepworth, Claire Paxman and Phil Day.
Okay, thank you. So, move on to item 2 on the agenda. So, declaration of disposable pecuniary interests. So, this committee is asked to make decisions about the adult education budget and boot camps. Yeah, so in the interests of transparency, can all members of the committee with an interest in the delivery of the adult education budget and skills boot camps, please declare at this point. Okay, is that a yeah? Right, thank you. And on point 3, in terms of the exempt information, so there is one section in the that you will have seen in the pack that's come out to the committee. So Appendix 1 for item 6, there is some exempt information around the adult skills update, in that the combined authority cannot release certain data publicly ahead of it being approved or reviewed and approved by the DFE. So again, if there are any questions or issues on that, we will need to specifically stop the meeting, make sure that cameras, recordings, etc. are off, and then have that discussion. So please shout if you're going to launch into any conversations on that section. Okay, so unless there's anything else on 2 and 3, if we move on to the minutes. So minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of July. Are there any comments, questions?
Thank you, Chair. I've just been asked to refer to the note, I think it's item 46 under the governance arrangements. The minutes note that members suggested that the chairs of local school boards should be invited to the committee as advisory representatives, that there wasn't a specific action captured, but it would be good to have an update if possible, please. There's a passing reference in item 8, I understand. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. On the Chair's update note of the minutes, it talks about the match funding for the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which we had a conversation about two aspects of it. It was the lot size that was likely to be there, but also it may have just been me, but I think it was the feeling of the group to look at the match funding requirements and not make them particularly onerous. Has anything happened with that?
Yeah, so again, you're ahead of us all, Martin. The chair was about to ask me to give the chair an update on the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. So if that's okay, I can do that now. Absolutely, there was some really clear feedback from the committee last time, and invitations to bid for the Pillar 3 call will be published next week. With the application portal closing on the 5th of January and applications being assessed throughout January. I can assure you that the feedback of the committee was taken on board, and you will see that when they are published. As a reminder for committee members, it's just over £16.5 million that was allocated to the People and Skills pillar of the Shared Prosperity Fund. £2.65 million of that is for hyperlocal delivery, which is delivery via partner councils, and the remaining £14 million was allocated to regional projects. The employment and skills pipeline, which has been overseen by this committee over a year, via that process, that £14 million has been allocated to 4 region-wide interventions, and they will be reflected in those calls. So £4 million to be allocated to the delivery of Employment West Yorkshire. So as a named investment programme in the local investment plan, that isn't going out to call, that's already in place. And that's an employment support programme, which you will get a detailed update on later on the agenda today. £4 million to be allocated to an open call for projects to support work and health. £4 million as a community grants programme across 3 themes of work and health, support for those furthest from the labour market, and digital inclusion. And then finally, £2 million to be allocated to an open call for a partner to support the delivery of a pilot for youth unemployment. And again, there is a lot more detail on that in item 8 on employment support. And then finally, an update will be provided at the next committee prior to formal approval. And we'd expect contracting to take place following that meeting, with delivery commencing from the 1st of April next year.
Good. All right, Martin, does that cover? Yeah, okay, thank you, Michelle. So just to formally close it out, is there anything else on the minutes from the meeting on the 13th of July? Okay, so in terms of the chair's update, yeah, so Michelle has covered the first part of the update. The second part of the update from the chair was going to be around the advanced British standard. Yeah, and again, yeah, Michelle, if you're happy, yeah, to give
happy
that update,
to do that. So it's unlikely to have escaped the attention of committee members that in a speech that the Prime Minister gave at the Conservative Party conference on the 4th of October, he outlined intentions to replace A-levels and T-levels with a new qualification for all school leavers in England, called the Advanced British Standard. He set out a long-term ambition, really, in this space, with a new proposal taking up to 10 years to fully implement. The view of officers of the Combined Authority is that it's key for the growth of West Yorkshire, that education and progression pathways give our young people the tools and knowledge that they need to find employment in their chosen career. And we'd be really keen that if the proposed implementation goes ahead, there must be opportunities not only for mayoral combined authorities, but for other key local organisations to influence and coordinate engagement. And the role of local education, elected leaders, institutions and providers in that design phase is absolutely essential to ensure that future plans reflect the needs of our region and our young people.
Yeah, just to note, because I think, Michelle, you said that if it goes ahead, and obviously there's a general election in not too distant future, and it was an announcement from the current Secretary of State. Although the title is a very poor title, the principle of a similar baccalaureate-style qualification is wholly supported by the Labour Party and the Lib Dems. So, in terms of a direction of travel, if not the title of the qualification, something similar looks like it's on the political agenda, whichever party is in power.
Thank you, Colin. Any other comments from the committee? No? Okay. Thank you, Michelle. And that closes item number 4. So, item 5 on the agenda So influencing the system, economic strategy, and the digital blueprint. So building on the new West Yorkshire plan that was launched in the spring this year, work is progressing to develop a new economic strategy and supporting policies such as a digital blueprint for the region. So, Joe, if I can ask you to take the floor. Sorry, Joe and Soban to take the floor to give an update on the economic strategy. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Chair. Hi everyone, I'm Jo Barham, I'm Policy Manager at the Combined Authority. So there's quite a lot going on at the moment in terms of policy development, and that's reflected in the agenda. We've got a number of conversations on different elements of this. So there's going to be 3 parts to this item. So I'm going to talk through the process and the context for the economic strategy, and I'll pass to Saban, who's going to talk about one of the deep dives aligned to this work on digital, and Peter is going to talk through some of the data around skills and how that's feeding into the development of our work. Sorry, I should have done that the other way around. I did it in the way that we're sitting, but Peter's going to talk through the data and then he'll pass to Saban to talk about the digital blueprint. So where we are in terms of this policy cycle, so it really reflects a number of political and economic events that take place over the last few years, and this is reflected in the strategies that we've had. So we were working to a strategic economic plan that was aligned to our growth deal and set out how we would spend that funding. And as we were coming towards the end of the strategic economic plan and the growth deal, we moved towards a more agile framework, our strategic economic framework, and that was to reflect a number of our different policies and strategies that were aligned around a core set of objectives for West Yorkshire. And at that time, we were also working on a local industrial strategy reflecting the national government policy of the time. But there was a change in that policy, and that change occurred at the same time as the pandemic and lockdown. So as a response, we used a lot of that evidence to develop an economic recovery plan, which was to respond to the challenges of lockdown and the impact that had on the West Yorkshire economy. We're now in a position where we have agreed a devolution deal, and we now have our elected mayor. And so it's a real opportune time to look again at our policies. And with devolution came a real strengthening of some of our priorities, particularly around equality, diversity and inclusion, around putting net zero at the forefront of our work, and really pushing for an inclusive economy. So as the Chair said in the introduction, we published, to reflect those priorities, we published the West Yorkshire Plan earlier this year. This was agreed by the Mayor and the 5 political leaders of West Yorkshire. And what that does is it sets out at that really high level a framework for West Yorkshire. There's a vision to 2040 with 5 ambitious missions which set out what we want to achieve and the transformational change we want for West Yorkshire. But what it doesn't go into detail in is how we're going to achieve that change. And so the next layer of work then is to develop our economic strategy, which is really going to set out how we will go about achieving those missions, particularly mission 1 for an inclusive economy with well-paid jobs, but speaking to all of those missions across the plan. And then within that, then there are specific deep dives into areas which we're going to cover throughout the conversation today, the first of which being digital. So that's the context and where we've got to with this process. So in terms of what we're doing then, so there's a big programme of evidence collection going on at the moment. So we are refreshing our economic assessment that we carried out in 2019 that was aligned to the local industrial strategy work I mentioned. So Peter will talk about some of the emerging highlights in that, particularly in relation to skills. We've also got a commission that's out at the moment to look at growth opportunities and particularly trying to really understand the net zero growth opportunities for West Yorkshire. What are the economic opportunities do we have for net zero and that transition? We are working with the universities on a call for evidence across 3 areas. So Peter O'Brien's here today, and he is part of a network, YPERN, which has a role to specifically work with policymakers to help us to embed academic expertise into the policy-making process. So that call for evidence is on 3 areas that we know are really important to our economy, but where we don't have as much intelligence and research currently. So we're looking at childcare and the role of that, In the economy, we're looking at the informal economy to try to understand what that looks like in West Yorkshire, and that's all about being an inclusive economy and making sure we do understand all elements of our economy. And we're looking at the future of work, the impacts that AI will have, the challenges and the opportunities, and what that means for West Yorkshire. The Mayor recently launched a West Yorkshire Scientific Advisory Group that's being chaired by Professor John Wright from the Bradford Institute for Health Research. And this group is to really explore the relationship between health and the impact that has on productivity and people in the workforce, on economic activity and people that are in work and that impact. So that is in very much early stages, but I think there's going to be some really useful insights and evidence that come out of that as we develop the strategy and also as we go on to deliver it as well. So alongside the evidence gathering, there's a programme of consultation that's taking place. There's a link in the paper to a questionnaire that's gone out. I would ask members of the committee, if they haven't already done so, to complete that and to share it with your networks and contacts so we can get as many responses as possible. We've had about 120 so far, but we want to get a lot more, so please do share and complete. We've got various consultation conversations happening, so both Tims on this committee have been involved in discussions recently. So we had an event last week at Bradford at the Impact Hub, really interesting discussion, particularly around business support and how we can strengthen our relationships with different communities and what we need to be doing, what's the role of the combined authority here. We're really trying to unpick that and understand it and see where we can best add value and what we should be doing. We're having place-specific events, so Tim Thornton was involved in a Kirklees discussion about issues there and how really trying to unpick and explore that relationship between local strategies and regional strategies, and that's where the West Yorkshire Plan is really helpful as that top-level framework that everything can flow down from and giving that coherence and consistency across not only our strategies here but also across to our partners in local authorities. So we are planning more events, and again would really welcome the opportunity to come and join any existing meetings, groups, consultations that you have going that we can come to and add value and speak to people, so we can really be clear that we've spoken to as many people as possible, engaged as many different voices and communities in this process. So that's obviously a lot going on. We want to, by the end of this year, be in a position where we can look at this first wave of evidence collection and consultation and then start to sort of synthesise that into a series of priorities, thinking about what's the best framework to do that. And then there'll be another process of going back out to everybody and sort of sense checking that this is what we think based on the evidence, based on the consultation. These are the priorities at the high level we've come up with, getting feedback on that, and then going back again and drafting something to share. So it's an indicative time frame because it's difficult to predict. Some of, there can be delays and holds up on things, but hopefully we'll be in a position by late spring, early summer next year to have a document to share for comment. So I'll pass to Peter at this point, who's going to talk through some of the data before we go on to explore one of the deep dive elements of the strategy in relation to digital.
The role of employment and skills in this context, and also to set out some of the issues and constraints that West Yorkshire faces. So this is just to focus on selected high-level issues. I shared some slides earlier this week, but there won't be enough time, I think, to go through all of those slides. As Joe mentioned, we're working on the development of a full evidence base to support the economic strategy, and that will give a fuller picture of the opportunities as well as the challenges that we face around employment and skills in terms of developing the economic strategy. So I think this first chart provides a really good illustration of the relationship between skills and economic performance at local level, and it really brings to the fore the nature of the challenge in terms of addressing skills challenges as part of a wider economic strategy. And in the chart we have two variables. We have high level skills or high level qualifications in the vertical axis, and then we have productivity, GVA per hour worked. And productivity is really important. It's a central measure of economic performance, really, in the sense that It's the main driver of business and economic growth, and it also drives, it's the main driver of improvements in living standards and pay. So what you can see is that low skill areas, low skill areas also tend to be low productivity areas. You can see that West Yorkshire is positioned towards the left of the distribution there, indicating it's got low skills and low productivity performance. That is in common with most areas in the north of England. But at the other end of the spectrum, we can see areas primarily in the southeast of England and London, which have high productivity and high skills performance. So there's a strong correlation between skills performance and productivity, which shows the central importance of addressing skills issues as part of the economic plan. Skills aren't the only issue under consideration, of course, and the only issue that's important. There are also other factors, including transport, agglomeration, capital intensity, that are also important. And these various factors tend to work in combination in terms of driving productivity and economic performance. And it's also not just a case of raising skills to improve productivity performance in isolation. The effect works in the other direction as well. So productive and prosperous areas with well-paid jobs tend to attract highly skilled people. And in fact, Resolution Foundation, in their recent reports on Birmingham and Greater Manchester, have argued that homegrown solutions to improving the skills base are not enough, and we also need to promote net inward migration of skilled workers. So there's a need to address the demand side as well as the supply side as part of a coordinated strategy within the economic strategy. But there's no doubt the expansion of the West Yorkshire skills base is a sort of precondition for progress on productivity. So just quickly looking at the demand side of the economy, we can see there's a deficiency of demand that's reflecting the proportion of workers who are employed in higher skilled and higher paid jobs in West Yorkshire. So effectively, the West Yorkshire economy offers fewer high skilled opportunities than nationally. There's a 4 percentage point gap in the share of people working in management professional and associate professional roles in West Yorkshire, so it's 52% versus 48%. And in real terms, that means we've got 44,000 fewer people working in these kinds of roles in West Yorkshire. And as you can see from the chat as well, there's variation across local authority areas within West Yorkshire against that indicator. But just an important piece of context there is that even though we underperform compared with the national average, there has been strong growth in high skilled employment in West Yorkshire over the last decade. So the number of people working in those high skilled jobs has increased by about 29%, or 119,000, and the share of those high skilled jobs has increased from 41% to 48%. And Saban's going to be talking about digital. That's been a key source of growth in terms of high skilled employment. So we estimate that the rate of growth for digital jobs has been about 7 times that for jobs as a whole. So turning now to the supply side, we've noted that there's a need to increase the proportion of people with higher level qualifications. I'd just like to look at that in more detail and sort of quantify that. So at the moment, we've got a 7-point percentage point deficit in terms of the proportion of people with higher level qualifications. That's level 4. So what that means in real terms is that we need an extra 90,000 people of working age with high level qualifications to bring us up to the national average. And at the other end of the spectrum, there's also an issue around people with either no qualifications or lower level qualifications. That has a big impact on employability and sort of people's prospects in the labour market. And we've got around 200,000 people at the moment who either lack qualifications or are qualified below level 2. To match the national average, we would need to reduce that by 50,000. And as you can see again, there are big variations between local authority areas in terms of this. And Leeds performs relatively well. That seems to be due to attracting high skilled workers rather than rather than homegrown attainment, if you like. Now, I've now got a series of slides that are around some of those constraints around skills development, and this first one is around the low proportion of young people in West Yorkshire who are reaching the age of 19 and achieving qualifications at level 2 and level 3 by that age threshold. I'm not going to go into these slides in detail in view of the shortage of time, but the next slide is around the reduced level of investment in government investment in further education and skills programmes over the last decade. The next slide then is about employer investment in training. So we extrapolate some figures from the Employer Skills Survey, and what we can see there is that the level of investment in workplace training, which is central to productivity, has reduced by 31% over the last decade. And we also have issues around mixed entry rates into higher education across West Yorkshire. So another aspect, I've talked about productivity, but another aspect of the equation relates to employment. And I mentioned, well, when we looked at this scatter chart before, we saw that areas with low productivity tend to have, areas with lower skills bases tend to have low productivity. If we produce a similar scatter chart looking at employment, we would find that areas with low skills also have low employment rates. And we can see from this chart that West Yorkshire actually has a deficit in its employment rate of 3 percentage points. We would need to get 40,000 people, inactive and unemployed people, into employment to bring West Yorkshire up to the national average around that. And again, as you can see, there are variations at local authority level in how local authorities perform in terms of their employment rates. And just building on that, access to employment varies for different groups within the population. So the economic strategy will need to consider how improved economic performance can be translated into opportunities for everyone, for all groups. You can see here, for example, disabled people have much lower employment rates than the overall population. And again, the issue is primarily around economic inactivity rather than sort of unemployment as such. So I think the main point here as well is that with an ageing population, we've got a challenge in terms of maximising participation in the labour force amongst all groups in order to support economic growth. So just a chart here about some of the issues around mismatches. I won't go into this in detail, but we've talked about the overall picture around supply and demand of skills. This picture looks at the issue of mismatches, where there are mismatches between the pattern of supply and demand. And we can see here that around a third of vacancies in West Yorkshire are skill shortage vacancies, which are difficult to fill due to a shortage of candidates with the right skills. So I'll just proceed then to the conclusions, but I won't go through these in detail, but they're there for people to review, but it's reflecting some of the previous points. So I'll hand over to Mr. Brown. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Spy Dowling. I'm the Policy Officer for Business Innovation. I'm stepping in for Marianne, who should usually be here for the skills stuff, but she's on leave. So we've been working on a digital blueprint for West Yorkshire, which is a successor document to the Combined Authorities 2019 digital framework, and it builds on last year's digital skills plan. The blueprint aims to be the foundation for the region's activities regarding digital up to 2030. Having a plan for the digital economy is crucial for the region, as it will help us boost productivity, reduce skills gaps and shortages, improve our connectivity, make us attractive for investment, and make residents' lives better. Feedback at the Combined Authority Committee on the Digital Skills Plan acknowledged that digital skills are just one piece of the puzzle, and that digital skills enable the wider economy. Therefore, we are working on a holistic digital policy that interlocks the three horizontal elements of people and education, place, and businesses and organisations. People and education refers to digital skills, inclusion, workforce development, and educational pathways. Place refers to smart city initiatives, infrastructure development, connectivity, and connected places. Businesses and organisations refers to digital transformation, investment, entrepreneurship, innovation, research, trade and export promotion. The next step is our verticals. These are the agents that will bring about change and were developed by analysing what was most important and trending through prior consultation and desk research. The digital agenda is broad, so there are going to be inevitable gaps. But by agreeing these verticals, it ensures we're capturing the most important focal elements for West Yorkshire. The verticals are as follows in the order prioritised by the Private Sector Committee member consultation we held last month. Ensuring that we are benefiting from advanced technologies, for example AI and machine learning, showcasing all the digital opportunities that West Yorkshire has to offer, ensuring that digital technologies make day-to-day life easier for West Yorkshire residents and businesses, tackling digital exclusion, collaborative working of digital stakeholders in West Yorkshire, understanding and using data to make West Yorkshire a well-connected digital destination, and establishing digital as a method to help West Yorkshire work towards tackling the climate emergency. Each of the verticals will be addressed in the blueprint through the horizontals of people and education, place, businesses and organisations in order to provide a rounded document on digital in the region and provide a foundation for effective policy development. It would help to inform the process if the feedback that we get is particularly about whether the horizontal and vertical approach is clear, captures digital skills sufficiently, and if as officers are approved to develop a first draft of the blueprint using this approach. Thanks.
Okay, thank you all for an excellent update. Can I open it out to the committee then, please, in terms of feedback, questions?
Just a comment really, I guess, to Peter. Universities UK, which is the national body for universities, had its annual conference recently in Manchester, and Ian Diamond, who's the national statistician and chief of ONS, said ONS were conducting a study which he put great store in on the relationship between higher level skills and productivity. And I was just wondering, could we as a combined authority connect into ONS either through the regional kind of ONS statisticians to make sure that we're influencing that work, which he suggested could be incredibly important for a whole series of reasons.
Hi, Joe. Three comments really. The first thing around good jobs, although you referred to it as well-paid jobs, and these are really strange times in the economy and really strange times in the labour force. And I'm not sure what we would traditionally think of as a bad job is a well-paid job anymore. I saw my local pub was advertising for bar staff on £15 an hour this week, and of course lots of warehouses. And I think we just need to think around what that means for the Fair Work Charter and everything as well. And then just on the local plans. It is really important that we get those matched up, because at the moment they're being developed in isolation, and I think we need to start bringing them together much earlier on, because consultants have been appointed by various organisations to deliver their plans who don't have the internal skills that the combined authority has, and it's just making sure that there is a final thing is on business support, which I know we're talking about a bit later on. And business support there's a real danger that we think that what we all do here and what we talk about here with very, very limited funding is business support. And it's a tiny element of all of the support that businesses access every day from their accountants and solicitors and with those other deliverers of business support to make sure that they're developing their products and services that help the ambitions of the combined authority and the region.
Yeah, just to come back on that, thank you for those comments. Completely agree, and thank you for your time yesterday, because we had a really good conversation with Martin and some of the other business representative bodies along these themes, and that, you know, absolutely hit the nail on the head about the, you know, challenge around resources. So how do we add value in the best way that we can? And, you know, it's bringing together, there's, you know, all of these great partners that we've got in the region. How do we really come together in a coherent way and make sure we're all adding value at the right level, not duplicating but working together? Because we, you know, as we said yesterday, we all have got the same aims, you know, we do want the same thing, so it's finding the best ways of working. So we really do want the strategy to reflect that. And on the local point, again, yes, completely agree, and we are working closely with the local authorities on this. So there's different stages for the different authorities in terms of where they are with the cycle. So there's some that we're in a great position to really align, because it's happening at the moment in Kirklees and in Calderdale in particular, and we have had conversations with Leeds. Have recently launched their inclusive growth strategy refresh, but, you know, we've been part of that, and again the West Yorkshire plan is in that strategy as a high level. But agree, you know, it's more than just that broad match up. We do really need to make sure they're speaking together, and that is a big piece of this work. You know, for us at the Combined Authority, there's, you know, the diagram in the paper that shows all the different policies and strategies, so trying to bring alignment across those internally here and then across to our partners as well.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so from Leeds, we really welcome the opportunity that we've had to feed into the developments of documents, to reiterate that need for aligning with local strategies and the future talent plan, and yeah, the importance of local engagement throughout all of it. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got a concern and a growing concern about about the skills for young people and how that flows through into the future, particularly in Leeds. So Leeds has currently, in terms of young people not in education, employment or training, or unknown, one of the worst statistics in the country, and it's going to get worse, because in Leeds it's not about engaging with young people anymore. The capacity in the post-16 education system is not sufficient for the number of people in Leeds. So the number of NEETs will grow exponentially over the next couple of years. Now, that it's not a general problem, that's particularly technical education and young people at level 1. But once you get left behind at level 1 at age 16 to 18, the likelihood of catching up or being engaged in economic activity drops off quite sharply.
Thanks, Colin. I was just coming back. I wonder if you would like to repeat what you said in the middle there. Were you saying there isn't enough capacity in Leeds for all the 16-year-olds we've got to have a place to continue your education? Is that what you meant, or yes. Did I miss? Okay. Seems like quite a significant issue.
It is, yes. So, so for Leeds City College, for example, the number of 16 to 18-year-olds that we have this year increased by 1,000. And we're now having to manage our buildings in line with fire regulations. In other words, they're so full that we can't allow all of the students in all of the time. So we can't grow at all next year. We've done as much as we can to grow to meet the demand. So next year there will be a further increase, and there isn't anybody in Leeds to meet it.
Okay. Right. Thank you. I'm not sure what we do, but I think that is definitely a system level issue. It's partly to do with obviously population sort of demographics up and down, but there is something in the system that we definitely should do, because NEET levels are already too high and rising. So I suspect Joe and others will like to pick up this with key colleagues around the table, just to see what it is, our role is, and how we can address this. I don't know whether it's more than Leeds, but
it varies quite considerably from local authority to local authority. And it's just a function of the fact that, particularly at age 16, the number of young people that travel from Kirklees into Leeds or vice is quite small. 16-year-olds don't travel that far. So it's quite local.
Sasha?
Yeah,
I was just going to say, we understand that economic inactivity is obviously one of our biggest problems. It would be really great if we could commission more research into what are the challenges which are ensuring people, are making people not have the confidence to even think about employment. So if we could commission some of that research, that would be great. And just my second point was around the data is really interesting, actually. I did know it was 2021, and I just wonder how the cost of living crisis has impacted on those figures. It will no doubt have made them worse, but I'd be interested to see where specifically.
Just on that point of commission, yeah, it'd be good if we could have a follow-up chat, because there is actually an opportunity from a couple of the sort of networks and groups that I mentioned about things we're looking at. So that I think we could commission something to be good to have a follow-up chat.
Councillor Reynolds?
Yeah, I would like to echo that a little bit from Kirklees' point of view. I think the data that we've got is suggesting slightly older, from 18 up to 24. But we're going to have capacity issues. We do have capacity issues in there. So it's being felt, and it might have something to do with transport and where they go to. But we've got some very strong colleges that maybe are coping with the 16s, but we've highlighted a capacity issue for our 18 to 24s.
Okay, thank you all for that feedback. So we have, so as part of agenda item 5, we've noted the progress and framing of the economic strategy and provided feedback, and we have noted the progress on the direction on the digital blueprint, ahead of that now being drafted. So thank you all for that feedback. Okay. We'll then move on to agenda item 6. So this is the adult skills. So focus on adult skills, specifically a proposal submitted to the DFE for the Wave 5 of boot camps, the national funding rule changes for the AEB, and the AEB cross-border arrangements. Committee views are being sought, in particular around those last two issues, including discussion options and the recommendation for the way forward. So, Pippa, if I could hand over to your good self.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, everyone. So, the paper really highlights the range and breadth, I think, of our adult skills reach and offers, and we're lucky as a team that we get out to meet our adult learners and really see the impact of the adult learning. Recently, we've been to celebration events across the region, and we're visiting courses to hear from learners about their journeys through adult skills. Our aim, while we're working with the sector, is to create an ease to navigate adult skills provision, to hide the wires of the different funding streams, and to ensure that a West Yorkshire resident can gain this confidence and skills they need to progress. Whether that's going through the First Steps community learning provision, building numeracy confidence, or gaining the skills required to support employer gaps across West Yorkshire at level 3 and above. The adult skills team are constantly reviewing the usage of funds to ensure maximisation and greatest impact to our West Yorkshire learners. So as you're aware, in 22-23, the Combined Authority approved a 10% uplift to our adult education budget learning aims to reflect the rising costs of delivery and the static rate for 10 years. But this was to be further reviewed alongside any national rate changes, which are now coming into effect in 24-25. So Appendix 2 highlights these government changes to the funding rates, which will be introduced from next August. The changes have increased funding in priority sectors, for example, health and social care, ICT and construction, whereas Foundations for Learning and Life, which includes maths, English and ESOL and some employability quals, would be the biggest losers. To support our discussion, the paper includes 3 options, although there may be alternative views from yourselves for us to consider. While we were pulling this paper together, we've consulted with our local authority colleagues, our West Yorkshire colleges and the West Yorkshire Learning Partnership, with overwhelming support for option 3, but we are keen to get your views at this early stage. So option 1 would be to adopt the new national rates with no additional uplift. Option 2 would be to adopt new national rates and maintain the 10% across all aims. And option 3 would be to adopt the new rate with 10% uplift on a specific sector, which is the Foundations for Learning and Life. This includes the functional skills English, Maths and ESOL. These are qualifications with a general focus on personal development and preparing for employment as well, which account, so there's a small proportion of those quals within this sector subject area. But these quals are all within our AB strategy, priority provision, and if we didn't uplift these, we may see a reduction in delivery because of viability. These are skills that support our individuals to progress, leading to an increase of the number of individuals who have a maths or English qualification and the language skills to improve their opportunities. The uplift also increases the viability of the delivery, so it may encourage providers to deliver increased numbers of these aims. Alex Miles, who is unable to attend today from the West Yorkshire Learning Partnership, sent her support for option 3 as our representative from the independent training providers. So we welcome comments from the committee.
Councillor Thompson?
Could tell I've been better briefed this time. So thank you. And broad agreement from Leeds on this, and welcome the work that's been done. ESOL is a critical priority, and if we want an inclusive workforce, we've got to enable everybody to participate. The uplift will support providers, especially local community-based ones, to recruit and retain skilled staff. And this option would have the most impact on increasing skills level and progression. Thank you.
Colin?
Yeah, just to echo that, very strong support for option 3. Thank you very much. Just to note that we already have significant waiting lists for ESOL provision in particular, also some for basic skills. If we went with any of the other options, those waiting lists would just get longer.
Yeah, I would just echo that as well. From the individuals that we come into contact with at the job centre, ESOL is a primary need right across West Yorkshire, and does lower level skills as well. So I think we don't want to increase waiting times to get to engage with those individuals. So yeah, we would support level 3 as well. Yeah, option 3.
Thank you all for that feedback.
I'll put my hand up next time. Actually, I feel like a little bit of an echo myself, but it's ESOL's incredibly important in Kirklees. We have got an issue with our ESOL provision. We can't, the ability for our FE colleges to recruit appropriate work has been a challenge, and we would support option 3 given the choice. We do have a little bit of an issue that we are coping just about at the moment, providing our ESOL from local authority, but our numbers are very high. We know there are colleges working in the area that we don't think are actually taking up maybe as much as they could to ease some of the pressure, and our waiting lists are getting bigger and bigger. So we do need to have a think about, I think, and I am new to this, so bear with me, but just looking at it, we've got partners working with us that are paid for, but they're actually not working in Kirklees. So we need to redress that and actually get some support for our local authority. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Evans. Oh, sorry, Pippa.
Hi. Oh, just to say, we are working with providers across and the local authorities to really look at the mapping, what's missing, and really working with that so that if there are cold spots, we have responsiveness opportunities that we can then meet where there are gaps in provision across all local authorities, but we're working really closely with Kirklees to look at where we can meet that need.
Is that okay? Fine. Yeah, that's good. I think there's a time issue here, and I think we do need to kind of work on that maybe a little bit quicker. As I said, the waiting lists are actually increasing literally day by day, and it's going to become overwhelming.
Okay, thank you, committee members. I think that was a fairly. Oh, sorry, Pippa.
Thank you. So the other item in the paper that I just wanted to bring to your attention, so in 2.1 in the paper, the West Yorkshire AV strategy detailed the commitment to support our grant providers that are from the wider Leeds City region areas, to support learners that want to travel to learn, or if they work out of area but want to learn in that area. So we in the AB strategy, we now have 2 years of AB delivery, and we think it's time to review the arrangement with these out of area providers to see if it's still appropriate. And also, West Yorkshire is soon to be in the unique position that we'll be surrounded by devolved authorities. Therefore, it's time for us to consider whether there are cross-border arrangements that could ensure that West Yorkshire residents can access the provision they need at a time and a location that best fits their circumstances as easy as possible. So we are working with other MCAs to look at models of cross-border working where it could work best, and we just we'd like to explore this further. So open to comments.
In terms of out-of-area providers coming in area to deliver, wouldn't be very keen. In terms of cross-border arrangements, would like them to be reciprocal with the other MCAs to enable adults to travel to the best and easiest place to get to for their studies in any direction. So cross-border is really important, but reciprocal arrangements with the other MCAs so people can travel in either direction.
That's definitely on our discussion. So that's what we will be taking forward, a cross-border arrangement both ways.
Okay. Any other comments? Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Pippa. I think option 3 was had a very strong, recommendation, and backing from the committee. Okay, thank you. So if I can move on to agenda item 7, so the all-age careers. So effective careers education, information and guidance for residents is key in ensuring support for individuals and businesses across West Yorkshire. If I can invite Annika Gilbert, please, to give an overview.
Thank you, Chair. I will give a very short overview about the project itself regarding the West Yorkshire All Age Blueprint before handing over to Danielle to give a quick update on the delivery activity as well. I would then also like to invite members to comment and ask questions about the interim report that is appended to the paper, and obviously welcome any feedback they have while we are at the end of the first stage of the project. If you don't mind moving on, thank you. Just got a couple of slides just to give you a bit of context about the project itself. So working with our local authority partners, we are co-developing an all-age careers blueprint for West Yorkshire, and we have provided a previous update at the July meeting. There are 3 main drivers for the project, one of which is that obviously, as Chair has mentioned, careers support raises aspirations and career readiness of individuals, which has a direct link to improving productivity and increased employment participation. And we've obviously heard from Joe earlier about the economic strategy and the West Yorkshire Plan, and this would be one of the deep dives that speaks directly to those strategies and plans. We are looking to co-design a place-based model of good quality careers provision that is delivered across flexibility to focus on improving careers outcomes for disadvantaged groups in particular. We are also looking for the blueprint to support conversations with government to unlock further skills and employment-related powers and funding in step with recent trailblazer deals that we have seen in Greater Manchester and the West Midlands. Where we are in the process, so we've commissioned, the Institute for Employment Studies, working collaboratively with the International Centre for Guidance Studies as an independent expert in the field to undertake the research. And this interim report that's appended provides the some activity. For example, Peter has provided an in-depth evidence base of local labour market information, in particular with a view obviously to careers, and he's alluded to some of the evidence in the economic strategy presentation around the levels of qualifications, and we've also heard earlier about the levels of needs that are increasing, and all of that is reflected in the evidence base that's contributed to this interim report. We've also done a mapping exercise of providers. A lot of the responses were, as you'd expect, from education providers at different levels, but also individual SAG providers. We've received 44 responses. And we've also, the evidence base also includes a literature review and the results of a theory of change workshop that was attended by all local authorities, education and career service providers, and business representatives. And in terms of the next steps, before I go into the draft recommendations, is to take this emerging evidence base and the high-level draft recommendations that have been developed from that, to take that into wider consultation with local authority partners and wider stakeholders. In this space, we also undertaken a public consultation, and I think I don't know if you've got the data, but there will be a committee workshop offered to you as well, so that you've got a bit more space to feed into this rather than just a few, just a few minutes, because we really value your contributions to this. And there will be further formal and informal activity consulting with partners and wider stakeholders on the emerging recommendations as presented in the next slide. Thank you. So these are obviously within the interim draft report that is provided, as I said. So I won't go through them and read them all out to you, but it's really just I've put them on the slide to act as a a visual help for discussion, because I wanted to provide as much space as possible for committee members to ask questions about the project and the report, and provide comments so that we can take that forward. Thank you.
Committee, any questions, comments, feedback?
Yeah, hi, your recommendation for cultivating education to business relations, I think the sort of mix match that Joe referred to in skill provisions and what people think they need, and that includes the qualification requirements that come with all of the funding and the fact that things need to be counted. I just think there's a lot more work needs to be done on making sure that we address the need of the likely employers in the future, as well as that of the learners in this piece of work. And I know that the funding drives the behaviour, which is all around the learner here, but there's a big piece of work there. And I also think that it's not just around businesses, that public sector is a massive employer across West Yorkshire, everywhere, and I don't think we do enough to coordinate their recruitment and their employment and their skills training activity and it would be a really powerful tool just to sit down every now and again and just go through what we're planning, where, when, and why, and what we're recruiting, and how we can share those roles. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think this is going to be a bit of a tag effort. Really appreciate the report, but do feel it's a little bit young person focused, and we were expecting, I think, a wider age range to be considered. Just a couple of other points, and I think my final point will probably bring these up together, but there's no mention of C&K Careers, which is a major provider for us in Kirklees, and it's exemplar practice. It's excellent work that they're doing. And I think that maybe reflects the lack of almost place-based acknowledgement of what's going on locally. I felt when we went through the report a little bit generic at this stage, but that could be because it's interim rather than further along, but would like a little bit more detail and a bit more, investigation into actually what's happening locally to reflect exactly what's going on in each of the local councils and within the councils as well, because things are so different from area to area. And would really look forward to further consultation on that, please. That would be really good. Do you want to add something?
Absolutely. Can I just respond to a
Yeah.
couple of those questions? Yeah. And thanks for providing that feedback. Absolutely, the blueprint is envisaged to be across all ages. So I really value that feedback. If that doesn't come strongly enough through in the interim report, we will feed that back to IES to address that, because we, absolutely agree. And that obviously young people are very, very important. But this is meant to be taking a whole life approach, and looking at upskilling and reskilling throughout your career and throughout your adult life, as well as that transition from education to employment. In terms of the West Yorkshire flavour, the local detail, that is not strongly enough reflected. Again, I agree. And the recommendations are deliberately high level at this stage, because they are drawn from desk-based research mainly. Obviously, there was a theory of change workshop which local authorities were part of and wider partners were part of. But the majority of the interim report is based on desk research, so the LMI analysis, the literature review, the mapping exercise, and we absolutely appreciate that that is not enough to provide a really detailed direction of travel and prioritise or have that really specific recommendation at this stage, which is why it's left deliberately open. So that through further consultation, it can be really drilled down and tested and challenged whether these recommendations stand and should be further narrowed down into that to give that West Yorkshire specificity and the local best practice feeding into that, or are they do they need to change before we can drill down into that level? So and just to make you aware that is deliberate at this stage. And I think there was one more question. 1 second. I've lost my notes there, but hopefully that gives an answer. But if there's anything else that you'd like to ask,
Thank you. Just to reassure you that C&K are being engaged as part of the process as well, for completeness.
It just didn't show.
The report mentions universities, and I guess you would have spoken to them, but if you want further consultations, we're happy to convene there's a regional heads of careers network, and Tim chairs our kind of graduate work stream, so I'm sure they'd be interested from a West Yorkshire perspective, or wider Leeds City region perspective, in picking that up with you, Annika, but just get in touch with us.
It may be that this has already been picked up by the earlier question, but recommendation 5 is entirely written around young people moving into employment, and the document itself does highlight the significance of the need to address areas of skills mismatch, reskilling, etc. I mean, that's quite a fundamental recommendation, and I think it does need to be rewritten quite significantly to make sure that it's not simply about young people at that stage of their careers. It is fully inclusive of other parts of the population.
you, Chair. Yeah, just to add a tiny bit to what Councillor Reynolds was saying, just that desire for a really clear vision for West Yorkshire within this. It's clear that it's a work in progress, but just to reiterate that, and that there's data presented, but it doesn't feel like it's effectively analysed. But yeah, welcoming the work that's being done and look forward to seeing more of what's coming. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd like to, to say the same. I think some of the biggest challenges we find for people who are unemployed or in low-skilled work is that they're not really sure how they go forward as far as looking at the skills gaps that are out there, the job opportunities in which they could upskill to move into. And, the sort of careers information has a stereotypical view with it that is linked to younger people, that it's something you get at school and then that's the end of that journey. So I think how we reach out into all our local communities to say this is available, or there's going to be opportunities, I think will be really important, because for us in job centres we obviously see lots of people who are unemployed and we can signpost, that's great. But then there are a lot of people who are in low paid work who want to progress in work but really don't know how to do it. And obviously you get big employers who give a lot of that support and that personal development. That doesn't always happen across the smaller and medium employers. So I think it's a great piece of work, and I'll be really excited to see how it develops. And just keeping that broad spectrum, as you were saying, it's that whole age group, particularly for those who find themselves unemployed after a career in a particular occupation.
Responding to that, absolutely. We find as well that adults in employment are, one of the hardest to reach groups with, career advice and guidance. But it doesn't mean that they're not, a massively important group. We've talked about the importance of good work, and obviously progression is part of that as well. Yes, I again totally agree that local labour market information is absolutely key in connecting that supply and demand side, and obviously also taking on board Martin's points about the importance of businesses and the business skills gaps and needs, but also matching that. And I think that's why it's good to have that West Yorkshire approach and the local approach, so we can have that information feed into the provision, ideally at the end of this process.
Colin?
At some point, either as part of this or as perhaps separately, I don't know, just thinking about adults and reskilling and upskilling people in jobs, maybe worthwhile looking at the developments in the lifelong learning entitlement and how that's due to develop long term, particularly in relation to the modularisation and the ability of adults to take modules of higher level qualifications in the future. Because that is all about how people progress in jobs, etc.
Okay, thank you. And just one observation from myself, just in the report, there's no mention of parents and the influence that parents, some good, some not so good, can have on careers. Yeah, and I just think that needs to be considered, yeah, in terms of how we influence, yeah, how we communicate, yeah, parents as well, because yeah, some can be very limiting. Okay, thank you. So Danielle, we'll move on to second part of the update.
Thanks, Chair. Hi everybody, Danielle Choma, the Schools Partnership Manager. I just want to give you a couple of delivery updates from the Schools Partnership team. Predominantly the work is funded by the Careers and Enterprise Company, co-funded, which we have our West Yorkshire Career Hub. Around 180 secondary schools and colleges is within the network, all focused on progress towards good career guidance in the post-16 progression, particularly focusing on our most disadvantaged young people. So far this financial year, 59 of our institutions have made measurable improvements, and some making all of the Gatsby benchmarks as well, which is excellent. There's a couple of projects that I'd just like to highlight. Within the committee paper, you might have seen the evaluation of the apprenticeship and technical education a pilot project. This has been a small project aimed at supporting some of our students from across the region, working with employers who then mentor the young people with the aim to upskill their confidence in applying for apprenticeship or technical education, understanding the process and having the confidence when they leave school to apply and hopefully secure those opportunities. We've seen lots of success so far in this small project, with confidence increased, especially around the initial application stage. However, there is a need for the preparation for that later recruitment, so where there's online assessments and tests. The teachers in particular felt the strength of the programme was the employer interaction and the guidance that they were able to give the young people, and the employers themselves found this project really positive and are keen to take part in the project this year, which we are upscaling across West Yorkshire, working with amazing apprenticeships as well. And we know that there's a particular need to support young people to take up on these opportunities, as there's quite a significant lack of uptake to represent our young people. So we're really pleased with how that's progressing. And then one of our newest projects that we've been able to mention in the report is linked to a subject that we've discussed already. So those young people that are potentially not in education or employment or training. So our Careers Hub has been looking at some of the data, and obviously we've highlighted and seen the need and the figures rising across some of our local authority areas, in particular for year 11 and 12s. Quite timely, the Careers and Enterprise Company launched a national fund to support the development of a system to help reduce the NEET figures. So as a hub, we consulted and spoke with our local authorities to see who might be interested in putting on a small pilot project. We've taken this forward with Bradford and Leeds Local Authority, and we're really pleased to say we're successful and we've been awarded. It's only a small fund, but 100,000 to work with young people this academic year to look at the processes and systems in place. Bradford will also be working with Warwick University as well, because they've done a small pilot project over the summertime with a focus on year 12s, and Leeds will be focusing on year 11s, and hopefully we can share learnings across with other local authorities, but also look at West Yorkshire as well, some of the issues and how we can work together to help prevent those figures and put interventions before those young people become NEET. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Danielle. Any comments, questions from the committee? No. That's it.
I was intrigued by the results of the survey, I have to say. So page 156 in the committee papers, areas of interest that might be pursued through an apprenticeship. Unless we're including health more broadly and the medical industry, there's no interest in pursuing an apprenticeship in any health-related area. There were quite a few in becoming a barrister, which will be an interesting exercise. I don't know, that felt quite dispiriting to me in a situation where we're under the NHS obviously workforce plan looking for 98,000 nurse training places a year, of which a very significant proportion will be apprenticeships. I just wondered whether we ought to be more concerned with, and it's a very, very small sample from a very small exercise, whether we're getting that level of distortion into the understanding of apprenticeships and apprenticeship opportunities coming out of the end of it.
Thank you.
Okay. Peter?
Just on Tim's point, I was at a meeting last week with some West Yorkshire IT integrated care system health sort of professionals, and there is a real issue around retention, isn't there, of staff within the NHS, that it's incredibly difficult at the moment. So the more that we could work collectively to address that recruitment and retention issue, I think is hugely important. But it was very stark what they were saying around what's going on within the NHS or the wider social care sector as well.
Okay. No other hands. And again, Danielle, thank you very much. Yeah, excellent update. We'll move on to agenda item 8. So, employment support. Employment support continues to be a vital tool in supporting residents across the region into stable, sustained and well-paid employment. Josh, if I can invite you to present an overview of your paper.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start by making reference to some figures which are taken from the back page of the appendix to the paper, mainly the growth in the claimant count in West Yorkshire up to 70,215 claimants in August 2023, so a rise of over 13,000 claimants since January 2020. And the fact that young people account for approximately 20% of the total claimants in West Yorkshire, so in real terms that's around 14,300 claimants. And just related to this as well, as we've noted at numerous points at today's meeting, employment rates amongst young people continue to fall, economic inactivity continues to rise amongst younger age groups, and that's partly due to instances of ill health and long-term sickness amongst other factors. And to reiterate from our last committee meeting as well, specific groups of young people face significant levels of disadvantage when attempting to access the labour market, and targeted and bespoke place-based provision will be required to meet the needs of those facing disadvantage in the labour market. So the employment support blueprint is our big opportunity to envision how place-based enhancements can result in stronger provision for our residents and the local and regional economy. And to reiterate, we're preparing the blueprint now at this point in time in conjunction with our partners to be ready for further devolution and to show regional leadership on this agenda. And I'd like to highlight the fact that development is happening alongside the economic strategy that Joe talked us through earlier, and that obviously the intention is not to have to refresh this piece of work following the economic strategy, so they will be happening in tandem with each other. The blueprint will build on the principles of the LGA's Work Local model. There's a multidisciplinary project board comprised of combined authority and local authority colleagues, amongst others, that are kind of taking this blueprint forward. And I'd also like to highlight the emerging work streams of the blueprint at this point as well, those being youth unemployment, work and health, the good work approach to employment support, the examination of current national provision, and examination of potential system improvements in helping the system work more effectively. As alluded to by Annika in item 7, a workshop with committee members, the date of which will be confirmed soon, will provide the opportunity to explore these work streams in depth and get insight and steer from committee members, and that's something I'm definitely looking forward to facilitating in the near future. And to raise as well that thought leadership is a key goal for this piece of work, and this is reflected in the profile raising pieces indicated in 2.5 in the paper. I'd just like to spotlight the mention of the event with IES. We have a date confirmed for that now on the 20th November, and that represents a really exciting opportunity for us to work with national commissioners on this really key subject. Similarly, the work being undertaken on youth hubs is a clear example of multidisciplinary teams working together to envision place-based enhancement and better support our residents. So members will have noted the items on 2.6 to 2.8 which outline the DWP Youth Hub offer. As noted in 2.9, a working group of colleagues from the DWP, local authorities and the combined authority have been jointly mapping the current Youth Hub offer in West Yorkshire and have co-developed a set of design principles for Youth Hub provision in West Yorkshire based on the good practice seen across the region and beyond as well. And this approach again is very much based on those principles of the Work Local model. It's about allowing local leadership to respond to local needs and supporting this with regional coordination to supplement and support the existing offer where needed. These design principles are in the process of being finalised by the working groups, then will be available for wider sharing, and of course we'll be working closely with local authority officers to keep elected members briefed and ensuring that local area needs and priorities are reflected in co-development as well. I'd also like to highlight the work of the Work and Health Partnership Working Group, continuation of some of the great work that's been done in this topic area across our different local authority areas already. The first partnership meeting of the Work and Health Partnership has now taken place. This represents the first time bringing colleagues from ICS, DWP, skills leads together at a regional level, and it's really good to see this approach being referenced actually as a core principle for engaging the economically inactive in a recent LGA Make It Local paper. I'd like to reflect that that first meeting was very, very positive, and mapping has begun to understand the work and health offer across the region, and just that the group demonstrates kind of the ability to work together to better prepare for expected interventions to be delivered in West Yorkshire on this area. And then finally, regarding kind of current delivery and existing programmes, as everyone at this table will be aware, Employment West Yorkshire is our regionally coordinated, locally delivered universal employment support programme. I'd request that members note the success of delivery so far, in that overall engagement is above target to date, and that the programme has shown a proven ability to reach diverse communities and those experiencing deprivation. I'd also request that members note the illustrative example in 2.18 of how Employment West Yorkshire provides holistic multi-agency support tailored to individual needs. And finally, as previously discussed and as per the agreed local investment plan and noted in 2.19 to 2.21 in the paper, a change request has been submitted for the use of Pillar 3 funds of UK SPF to part fund Employment West Yorkshire activity in delivery year 2024-2025. I'm going to pass back to the Chair for comments at this point.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Yeah, obviously concerning about the youth and employment figures. Really good to hear about the partnership work and the positive steps there. To the committee members, comments, observations.
Yeah, thank you very much for all that information. I think we've done some great work together, I think, with DWP and the Combined Authority, with the Secondee working with the local authority, with the Combined Authority. I think youth unemployment and inactivity is a big challenge for us going forward. I think that's recognised nationally and locally. The youth hubs have been really successful, and how we build on those to get a robust offer right across the whole Combined Authority would be really great. I think going forward there are national opportunities that are going to come forward and online in autumn of next year, but I think dovetailing those with what we need locally in a place-based approach is going to be key. The work that you're doing across the integrated care boards, I think, will be key to get the greatest opportunities out of those national programmes. So it's really good that those groups are already set up and running, and obviously we want to continue to be key contributors to that as well.
Thank you, Chair. I do have quite a bit of feedback on this, but I will aim to keep it as constructive as possible. So there's a feeling that the work streams aren't joined up, and that we should be adopting a work local model to deliver a systems level, not the sort of programme and thematic level solutions. It's not clear why some of the changes are being presented at this stage, so the change to Employment West Yorkshire, or how the rollout of the digital inclusion programme would work. But the promise of local flexibility and key role for community organisations is welcomed. It feels like there's some overlap with the previous item, and a bit of potential siloing going on. And it's felt that the purpose of the Youth Work Hub in the paper isn't clear enough, and that maybe needs some refining. Are we redesigning that something exists, or are we? What exactly are we trying to do with that? If that makes sense, and just general risks of duplication. And just an encouragement to integrate as far as we can. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit to that. I think the current delivery of Employment West Yorkshire doesn't necessarily reflect local variances at this stage. In Kirklees, we've at the moment, for example, we've got 3 funded programmes, targeting the unemployed, which run until the end of this year. Therefore, the impact, or, well, the capacity for employment Kirklees won't actually be known until January. I've got the wrong date there, but it was January 2024. And it's not that. No, I'll stop there. That's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the comments from members. Just to kind of reflect on some of those comments around kind of potential overlap with previous item, I think that's something we're kind of aware of in that there is potential overlap there, but something we're keen to make sure doesn't happen, and that scopes kind of remain defined in that way. But I think, you know, everyone around this table will recognise that career support and employment support go hand in hand, and the opportunity to deliver them together is massive, and you know, should happen. So it's about working those two in tandem without kind of creeping into each other's scopes. I recognise that completely, and again, your points on kind of integrating as much as possible with existing work that's going on. Yeah, I think that's absolutely something we take on board.
Just to clarify, do some of your later points relate to not to the strategy, but to some of the other areas of the paper? Okay, that's really helpful clarification. Thank you. So particularly to the proposed changes to the funding arrangements for Employment West Yorkshire, was that what you were specifically referring to, and the switch to UK Shared Prosperity Fund? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joshua. Update. Final agenda item. So skills support for employers. At previous meetings, committee members have been consulted on the development of the Green Jobs Task Force research findings, recommendations, and emerging report. The report's now complete and ready to be launched. In parallel, work is progressing to skills support for business. So, if I could invite Michelle Hunter to give an update and an overview on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the paper does outline an overview of the Regional Skills Support for Business offer, and that includes an update on LSIPs and the Fair Work Charter, but also an update on our European funded programme Skills for Growth, which is now concluded, and the findings of that and evaluation will be presented to this committee at the next committee in February. Other key items to note from this paper are around the Green Jobs Task Force. So previously this committee has been consulted on the development of recommendations and actions in relation to this work, and over the last 12 months the task force has convened experts from across the region, has commissioned 2 pieces of research, worked with young people, and held several task and finish groups to develop recommendations. That's now concluded, and the report is available, and we would ask committee members to endorse that report, which is in your pack. At the last committee, we asked this committee to adopt those actions and recommendations, to take them forward, and they're currently being transitioned into delivery. I would like to extend my thanks to this committee who've been involved in the development of that work, and in recognition of that, one of our task force members, ITV Studios, has asked us if we would be interested in hosting a local celebration event to recognise the work of the task force, which will take place in December, where the Mayor can take the opportunity to recognise the importance of this work for our region. We would be really keen that this committee attended that event along with wider stakeholders, and we would also be really keen to get some young people who've played a key role in the development of recommendations and actions. So invites will be coming out shortly to committee members around that. The other key item in this report is around the development and design of our Skills Support for Business offer. So building on the success of our Skills for Growth programme and following this year's approval to utilise the remaining gain share funding, the Skills Support for Business was prioritised by this committee as part of our investment priorities for employment and skills going forward. and we'd be keen to consult with this committee on the development of that programme. So just to give an overview, as outlined in the report, that offer will include a regionally managed, locally delivered advisory services for businesses, a mayoral graduate programme which has been developed in consultation with universities and SMEs in the region, and we're just about to go out to tender for that programme. And then finally, a co-investment model for skills support for businesses. The idea of this is to encourage businesses to look at their workforce planning and to encourage, retain, attract talent into their workforces, to help them to decarbonise and digitise. So the programme supports the commitments that are outlined in the Green Jobs Task Force, but also outlined in the Digital Blueprint as well. And the Mayor will shortly be writing out to all businesses to invite them to a roundtable early next year to really seek views on this agenda. But on top of this, we'd be really keen to get committee members' opinions on how we should design that work, and in particular how we would design a good co-investment model for businesses. So we'd be keen to get thoughts on that from the committee today. I think that's it, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. So if we can just take the feedback and the updates, just based on those on the 3 areas update. So first around the Green Jobs Task Force and the final report, we're being asked to endorse and adopt that. Does anybody have any questions, concerns? Yeah, are we happy with what's in there?
Yeah, supportive. We'd welcome to know what next steps are. I think that's a key for us, as well for the task force, but as well for us here. What else needs to be done from members of this committee and how we fit in. Thank you.
Okay. Michelle?
Yeah, we're happy to do that. I think we would be happy to kind of outline where the actions fit into that delivery and how that works, and we'd be happy to do that to this committee so that it's clear how those actions are actually becoming tangible things in the region. Yeah, happy to do that.
Yeah, Martin?
Yeah, hi. Thanks. I think I'm just going to sort of repeat comments I've made throughout the day, that this is, in particular on the skills for business and to an extent the green skills elements of this. It doesn't feel like it's for business, it feels like it's for individuals rather than for business. And I think it's language, not intent. And I just think that it'd just be interesting to see how that affects business. I'm not sure, as you said, but the Mayor's going to invite all businesses to come and talk to them. And I'm not sure why they would at the moment. I'm not sure it's not written in their language, and I'm not sure why they'd come. So that messaging that goes out's got to be serious. At the moment, businesses have not been engaged in deciding if there's an emergency, a climate emergency or whatever, and they're being told, and they see the government changing their minds on what it is they've got to do when. But they all want to be greener. I don't know anyone that doesn't want to be greener. So it's just thinking about how we frame that to really engage with businesses rather than telling what other people have decided they're going to do to them.
Thank you, Martin. I would welcome a conversation about how we do that. Thanks.
Okay, so that's the final report on the Green Jobs Task Force. So the second part of the update was around the Skills for Growth programme, and the development of the Fair Work Charter. Are there any questions, observations from the committee? So Michelle.
It's me again, I'm afraid. Just a comment on the Fair Work Charter. We've discussed this recently with other business representative groups, and who have all been really pleased at their involvement with it, and they think that their input has made it into a far better charter than it could have been. So yeah, well done everybody involved in that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Okay, and then the final one, then in terms of the skills support for business. So Michelle, yeah, you're asking questions for thoughts on employer co-investment, models for skills. Again, from the committee members, thoughts, feedback, observations from Michelle and team.
Sorry, yeah, I do apologise. Yeah, our figures, we do, in our quarterly economic survey, which is nowhere near in the same depth as the data that Peter and the team gather here, but it's actually showing that there's been more investment from business in skills over the last, well, probably year, maybe a bit longer since COVID. That's mostly at the expense of capital investment, which they're not making because of interest rates, etc. But they are, and the skills shortages and the job shortages, the employment shortages they have, seems to have driven a number to invest in more in the skills of their existing workforce and potentially others. So I think you said it was down here. So yeah, but thank you.
Kind of an overarching bit really of some way. I just encourage you to kind of keep involving the local authorities. I think the reach that we've got with our partners is significant, and it gives that local impact more chance to happen. One of the other things that I've had written for me that please ask for, would be good to have an update on the planned capital and revenue work streams for the Local Skills Improvement Fund as part of the LSIP update. And could that come to a future meeting, please? And I'm quoting somebody else there, well and truly. And that's me done.
Okay, Peter, yeah, did you want to come back?
No, it was just to say that the trend mapped on the chart shows a decline from sort of 6 or 7 years ago. In the last year, it's been fairly flat based on the employee skills survey. But I guess there's also a large number, there are big businesses in there as well, and so maybe the profile's slightly different. But I did note the point from the QAS about investing partly because of recruitment problems to sort of offset those. So it is interesting. Be interested to see what the next employee skills survey shows as well, whether that picks up on the point you're making.
Okay. Any other comments, thoughts from the committee? The feedback that Michelle was looking for? No? Okay. That was the last agenda point. Unless there are any other items, any other business, then we'll close the meeting. Thank you all very much. Thank you for the excellent updates. Yeah, and 15 minutes back.